Hi, welcome to my creation. I'm John Polley, and this is my model railway built for exhibitions. It's easily assembled and dismantled in different sections, called Teigncombe, which is made up of Teignmouth, where we live, and the next village of Holcombe. And it basically is a model of the iconic South Devon coastal railway in front of the red sandstone cliffs, which is just a few minutes from where we live here in Teignmouth, with cracking sea views, etc. So that's my creation. Skills to pass on and teach. Well, I think I've got quite a few here that I'd like to be able to pass on to others as I do. One of them is, the main one is really, it's about repairing and repurposing old 40-odd year old trains. These were made in Italy 40 years ago. I grew up with these in my teens, and I modify them. I'll give you a brief summary on how I modify them. And also scenery, doing scenery very cheaply or freely using readily available or very cheap materials. I'll give you some ideas of what I do there. So, for powering the layout, I use, I don't buy model railway transformers, though you can, but you'll spend 10, 20, 30 pounds. I often use these old transformers. I check the voltage. It's very important, obviously, if you're not sure, make sure an electrician, etc. is involved. But I find transformers that are 12 volts, which is the output for model railways. So you plug it into the mains, and if it's got a 12 volt DC output, a low ampage, then I use them. And I often buy these at car boots or similar for less than 50p a piece. So I use those to power all my trains on the layout here. That's the power. Scenery wise, this red sandstone is genuine sandstone from Dawlish. We collect this locally, and we bring it home in tubs, dry it out, filter it through a mesh so I get the fine sandstone. I do the same with earth, and then mix it with PVA, make it into a paste, and then paste it onto old foam polystyrene, which again is free. I cut this down to make a former, and then paste the sandstone onto the top of it to get the cliffs or indeed the earth finish. So that covers the bit of the scenery. Use the old Hessian back carpet underlay from the old days before foam, and you can see it here glued down to form grass. That's yet to be sprayed, but that makes a wonderful vegetation surface, glued down again with PVA, which dries clear. So there's this vegetation. So that's the scenery. I also use plastic, bits of plastic I get from advertising hoardings. These came from a lady's dress shop. You can see the lady's face, about 5mm thick. Extremely easy to work with, to file down, to cut, to sand. It's also waterproof, which is why they use it on a lot of building site hoardings. Plastic from things like fruit, thin plastic, less than 1mm thick, very useful for certain jobs. These came off some tangerines. Or old credit cards or store cards, wonderful plastic. If they're out of date or expired, make sure you cut the signature off, but useful for making all sorts of little detail, like on the layout here, these little tops of the walls, etc., and other bits of foam board for that sort of stuff. So these locomotives, I modify these. I take out the old motors. I buy them cheap from again from second-hand sales if they're broken, and I repair these chassis. You can see where again I've repaired it using some of this old plastic, and the same with the bodies. I glue them back together, put filler in them to fill in damage, and I buy these often for maybe £5, £10 sometimes. Nowadays you'll pay well over £100 for a new model railway locomotive, so these are quite a cheap way of doing it. I then get little copper strips. You can make up these little copper strips yourself out of sheets of copper to make extra contacts to allow the locomotive wheels to pick up power from the track wherever possible. And the best bit, these little DVD or CD drive motors that operate the drive trays on those players, and they're often removed from old players by dealers, and there's nothing wrong with them. They're about £1.50 from China if you want to buy them from China. And then I put a little gear wheel onto the shaft in the middle there, little tiny gear wheel, which then links up with the gearboxes in these little 40-year-old engines. They're silent, and they run very quietly, and they run only on 5 volts. So I have a 5 volt transformer supply rather than the standard 12 volt supply to power these. And the gear wheels, little back, you get gear wheels pound for about 50 very cheaply. So it's a very cheap method of model railway. So what I'm really saying is that This is all about repurposing old trains, making model railways cheaply, and also on a bit of an eco-friendly basis, keeping them running with some modified materials. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.